I'm here with Tim Harvey, the curator of this incredible exhibit in Toronto. How does one even go about curating something so fantastic?
You know, like all great stories, you start at the beginning. First motor race that took place between Paris and Rouen. One car turned up, it won, and we follow the story from there. Okay. So this room is called Once Upon a Time in Formula One, and it really tracks the story of how motorsport and motor racing developed from that first race in Paris right the way through to the first International Grand Prix in 1906. And then the birth of the great marques, Alfa Romeo, Ferrari, Auto Union, Audi, what is it now, Audi, Mercedes, in those interwar and pre-war years, and how that, after the war, became Formula One, the championship that we know and love today, and how the different chapters of the sports history has rolled out. It's a fascinating story, and we try and capture that grand arc in one gallery, and that sets the scene for stories that we tell elsewhere.
Okay, this is not your first rodeo, obviously. You've done this before, okay? You've done some Madrid,
yes.
Vienna. So what have you learned from those experiences that makes this one even better?
It's fascinating watching people come through. What we have learned is that the audience that comes to these shows, they want to devour everything. They want to watch every film, they want to read every caption, look at every object. Yeah. We have been surprised at how the more depth that we have offered, the more that they have digested. Yeah. And it's a really broad audience. It's a fascinating story because it really the story of Formula One really transcends the sport. It goes into the wider automotive story, it touches on sustainability and mobility, themes that really affect our everyday lives. And so we've tried to create a show that is at the same time in-depth and editorially rich, but can engage that wider audience.
Well, we have a Toronto audience here. I know people come from all over just to see this for sure, but what will audiences in Toronto enjoy the most about this?
I think some of the cars that we brought to the show are great, and they really reflect some pivotal moments in the history of the sport. Tomorrow is the 30th anniversary of Ayrton Senna's accident at Imola, and we are featuring just behind us that his last Lotus that he drove. Really, Lotus was his breakthrough drive, and he drove for them at a great time. They were riding high on the success of they had through the 70s and the 60s, and so that's a story in itself. I think there's lots of stories. We've had over 80 people, drivers, team principals, engineers, some of the greats. You think about Adrian Newey and Christian Horner all contribute to this project, and the stories that they tell, I think, will be, shed a really interesting perspective on the sport.
Because this car is actually from Toronto. This was given to you from somebody in Toronto, right?
Indeed, real luck.
That's pretty cool. You have a lot of other really cool exhibits here too that I didn't think you would be able to see. There's a crash. We're seeing the actual power engine. Like when we walk through, normally you can't see these things up close. So I was very excited to walk through. But what are some of your favorite things?
Actually, some of the smallest items in the show have real resonance. Looking at ways in which some of the letters and documents and paper items that really speak to a story that we've got a copy of a letter that Bernie Ecclestone wrote to Brezhnev, who was the chairman of the Communist Party in 1982, pitching the idea of a race in Moscow in the Soviet Union and giving all of the reasons and the benefits that having a Grand Prix in the Soviet Union would bring. So they're really fascinating. Some of those small items actually are fascinating. But we hope that it will attract as many Canadians and folks from Toronto as possible. I
mean, even all over GTA, outside of that, any racing fan, even casual racing fans will enjoy this for sure. But I have to know, what's your reflex time? Because I was 3 something. Do you know yours?
I do know.
What is it?
It's 0.26.
All right, we're done here. Thanks, Joe.